I don't know, guys. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't really have. I do not have the answers you're probably looking for. This is brutal. Brutal, brutal, brutal. Yeah, I could not have imagined we'd be talking about this. I really felt like, this team was just going to really have their way with this league, and I don't know. I'm kind of speechless, to be honest with you, and I feel for all of you. I mean, it seems like, people put so much effort into, following the Rams every I got to give a highlight to that comment. I did not. Crying is not really me, but you guys are killing it with the comments. I'm not even pissed. It's to the point where I've said everything they need to do. I understand I'm not an NFL play caller, but I'm just at the point where I'm like, well, you can only ask so much from the defense when your offense is abysmal. You can only ask so much from your backup quarterback who doesn't have experience playing in games like that, throwing deep down the field when you're not going to run the ball. The fact that let's get into it. So the Rams lose 27-17. Welcome back in for those of you that are here. It's a lot of you, and I appreciate that. After a loss, seeing this many people, it definitely makes me feel good, because it is hard to go live after seeing a loss. You're just like defeated. You just want to have, a beer and maybe play some Modern Warfare 2 or, not watch football or talk about football. But I mean, hey, I knew the job when I took it, which is, content creating and being self-employed in the area of football expertise, or at least trying to give my expertise opinion. But no, this Rams team is not 2019. They're not 2017. They're not 2018. They're not 2021. They're their own thing. Okay, I don't think I've ever seen a season like this. I've seen bits and pieces of what, when they had Josh McDaniels as their offensive coordinator years ago. When they had some promise on the offense and they were showing some growth early on in the year, and then they just had every waking moment there was an injury. Bradford, Amendola having his elbow go backwards. I mean, the whole thing. This season has been unbelievable with injuries. The Rams at the end of this game were playing 4 out of 11 day one starters. 4. I'm not one to say it's all the injuries this, injuries that, whatever, but I do think the injuries had some play in this. However, I do think there's way too much talent on this team to be 3-6, to have lost to the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm just at the point where the play calling is so bad on the offensive side that I don't see it getting better. Like, I have a hard time predicting them to win next week against the Saints. The Saints are abysmal. They should beat the Saints, but the Rams are abysmal. I don't know what to make of this. Like, so what we know is that KOC, also known as Kevin O'Connell, is 8-1 with the Minnesota Vikings. Just won a huge game against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, the same team the Rams played and got dominated by in LA. So KOC actually did the game planning last year. That's what we know. We know that Kevin O'Connell did the game planning last year. I don't think he called any plays, but he did the game planning, the scripts, things like that. Design stuff he did. I mean, it's an excuse, but is Sean McVay asking Liam Cohen to do that this year? And if Liam Cohen's in the same exact role, is it not on him partially? I mean, I think there's a lot here. First off, if it's Liam Cohen, let me just be first to defend him for a second. If Liam Cohen is the one that created that script today, okay? I'm gonna have a hard time apparently because I'm like losing my voice, which is awesome. I love that. I was able to talk all fine until I got live. I don't know, just whatever. Anyway, what I was gonna say was, as I'm totally losing my voice. Jesus. All right. Kevin O'Connell was calling. Well, wasn't calling. He was doing the game planning and the scripting. So if Cohen did the game planning and scripting for this game, guess what? The script was actually good in this game. They started off pretty well. I mean, they had the best drive of the entire game on the first drive, which led to a field goal. I mean, aside from the touchdown, you could argue that. But that was the script, And it's like, if that's what Cohen is doing, then that's not a bad job. I think they've looked okay with the script. It's as the game goes along, the game flow. I don't like the play calling at all. I don't like the personnel they use. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't like the way they use the running backs, mainly Darrell Henderson, who, of course, ran for a touchdown because they were giving him the ball and he was running for positive yards. They put in Kyron Williams towards the end of the game, too little, too late. He had 39 yards on 4 touches, 3 receptions. Here's what I'll say. You can say it's Cohen. I would push back. I think Cohen will end up getting let go after the season, but it's not just Cohen, guys. I love Sean McVay, but I've been saying it for a minute now. McVay needs to give up play calling. He has to give up play calling. He is an unbelievably smart football mind. He is an incredible offensive play designer. But the play calling is so bad. It's terrible. It's ridiculous, man. We could go play by play. We're not going to do that, but we could. And I mean, look at this, okay? We'll pull this up. So at this point in time, the Rams, they've gone punt, 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 punt. Like the Rams back and forth the Cardinals. Okay. The Cardinals, they score a touchdown this next drive because the Rams, they punt on this upcoming drive. Akers up the middle 2 yards, pass to Higbee 2 yards, penalty on Hopkins, the false start, incomplete pass to Hopkins, and then a punt. So a 3 and out there. Okay, that wasn't that bad actually. So so they go into the end of quarter 2. So they go into the second half. The defense gets a stop. They're down 17-3. The Rams come out with a 10-yard run for Akers, negative 3-yard run. Then there's a penalty on Myjai Sanders, neutral zone infraction. It's a 5-yard penalty. So the Rams are now at second and 8, right? Then Wolford gets sacked. Now it's 3rd and 14, and they put in Bryce Perkins. They call a timeout. They're in a game, they're down by 14. They call a timeout, and they put in Bryce Perkins, and he runs for 8 yards, and then they punt. So they waste a timeout there. Then the defense gets another stop, and that's the best drive of the day. 7 plays, 59 yards. The Rams go down the field. Higbee 25-yarder. Allen Robinson 13. Higbee 11. They put in Perkins for whatever reason. Guys, anytime you're putting in Bryce Perkins, the defense knows you're going to run it because you're not letting him throw the ball. What I don't understand is that when I watched this game, you showed early on you could run the ball. You abandoned the run, okay? You had your backup quarterback throw 36 times. I just don't understand. John Wolford, let me tell you this right now. John Wolford averaged more yards per completion than Matthew Stafford did a week ago. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. I really don't. I'm kind of mind blown. Like, I don't see many wins left on the schedule if this is the play that they're going to have. And now with Cooper Kupp out, I don't know, man. I don't know. They made a deal with the devil for the Super Bowl. That's true. That's very true. Matthew, thank you so much for donating. Appreciate you. Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot. I mean, Sean McVay wanted more ownership of the defense, so he got rid of Wade Phillips and brought in, Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley leaves, then he gets Raheem Morris, and I feel like he still has a big part of the defense under his branch, so to speak. And I just feel like he's got too much on his plate and he has regressed as a play caller. I mean, there's no other. I mean, just the management of this game was just awful. It was so bad. They scored first. They were up 3-0. Then they have a 14 play drive that goes for 8 minutes and 44 seconds. Then Arizona has a 14 play drive that goes for 6 minutes and 3 seconds. And then the second quarter, James Conner 13 play drive, 4-yard touchdown run. Then a 5-yard, a 5 play 30-yard drive right before half, which was just terrible. And then the third quarter, Henderson gets the touchdown, and now you're down by 1 possession. So after all that, it's towards the end of the third quarter, you got a whole, 17 minutes left to go here. 18 minutes. And what do you proceed to do? Fail. I mean, you had the touchdown, you make it 17-10, defense gets a stop. So what do? You come back out in the fourth quarter, your defense just got to stop. You're down a touchdown. This is where the Rams should have taken over and won this ball game. There is no excuse. 1st and 10 at the LA 12. Pass incomplete, short right to Cooper Kupp. No idea why. No idea why they came out throwing. They're down by 1 touchdown. They just had success running the ball in their last touchdown drive. Why are you doing that? So they come out throwing. 2nd down, Wolford pass short right to Allen Robinson. They pick up the 1st down. So it's 1st and 10 at the 22. And then Wolford pass incomplete deep left to Cooper Kupp. He's injured on the play, and there's an illegal use of hands. So now it's 1st and 20. They use Darrell Henderson. He runs up the middle for 4 yards. Again, now you're running the ball. Bizarre. 2nd and 16. Higbee gets an 8-yard catch, makes it a 3rd and 8. And then they go deep down the field to Brandon Powell. Why? It's just so much. It's pass happy. It's let's throw deep down the field with John Wolford, who's our backup quarterback. Let's do the bubble screens. I'm tired of it, man. Watch around the league. Who's calling plays like this? There are teams, but I mean, it's so bad. The play calling is terrible. I can't even hold back. I mean, I love McVay. McVay has changed the fortune of this team, has done a 180 with this organization. And it took him a year to put this team in the playoffs. But this is going to be his 2nd year missing the playoffs. And this is the 2nd time where you felt like, man, what is happening? I'll tell you, Sean McVay's highs are Super Bowl. His lows are low, man. They are low. They are bad. When this team is bad, they are bad. And right now, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this team's just not a good football team. 2-4 at home. 1-3 on the road, or 1-2 on the road. I mean, they've played the majority of their home games already. So the rest of the year, this is what they have. If they want to make the playoffs, which I just don't see happening, they have to play the New Orleans Saints on the road, the Chiefs on the road. They have to play Seattle once at home. And then, by the way, the finale is going to be in Seattle. So even if they have a chance at making the playoffs, they're going to have to go to Seattle in January to try to do it. The Rams Chargers, that game will be flexed. That was a Sunday night game, January 1st. It was going to be New Year's Day or New Year's night, so to speak. Rams Chargers, SoFi Stadium, NBC, Sunday Night Football. That'll get flexed. I'm not even convinced the Christmas game against the Broncos won't get flexed. Both teams are 3-6. The Rams and Packers game was on Monday Night Football. Who knows if that doesn't get flexed? I mean, why would anybody want... I mean, the only game that's safe is the Raiders and Rams game, and that game's pitiful. I mean, that game's terrible, man. The Raiders look awful. 2-7. Oh, geez. But yeah, it's not good right now. It's not good. You've lost even me. I'm not very confident in this team moving forward. It's not because, Stafford didn't play, give him a chance. No. It doesn't matter that Stafford didn't play. They should have won this game. The other team didn't play their starter either. They played Colt McCoy. I don't know. I think really what it comes down to is the play calling on the offensive side is so bad that they're playing the exact opposite of complementary football. I mean, this team is terrible. This team is really just not a good football team. Now, are they talented? Yes, they have the talent, but they're not playing up to it. And until the play calling improves, which it hasn't in 10 weeks, so I don't know why it would next week. Until it improves, then yeah, this team is going to be held back. I mean, the Rams aren't even at the point they were at when they beat the Falcons. They beat the Cardinals. And they've only won 3 games this year. You have to keep that in mind. We're going into week 11. They've won 3 games. They've beaten the Panthers, the Cardinals, and the Falcons. They've lost to the Cowboys without Dak Prescott. They lost to the 49ers twice. They lost to the Bills. They lost to the Buccaneers. And now they lost to the Cardinals without Kyler. This team, it's just bad. It's just bad. It's not getting any better. I think it's a shame because I don't feel like the defense has played bad at all. This game probably they didn't play all that great, but it's really the offense, man. It really starts with the offense. And if Cooper Kupp's out for the rest of the year, which I believe he is, then yeah, I don't think they have a chance in hell. So who would have thought? Not me. No. But maybe, hey, when we were getting all upset about the way Von Miller was acting and OBJ not being interested potentially, I still think he was interested if they actually were a contender right now. But maybe, Von Miller left because he looked at this team and he saw something he didn't like. And I think that's what it was. I don't think he left just for the money. He thought that he had the best chance to win with the Buffalo Bills. I just, at the end of the day, I just feel like there's something that was missed. There's something that doesn't add up. You just don't go from being a Super Bowl champion in the same calendar year being a 3-6 football team that has no semblance of an offense and is probably not going to make the playoffs. That doesn't just happen overnight. That doesn't happen unless Matthew Stafford was gone, unless they lost Cooper Kupp for the year week 1. Whitworth isn't enough. As much as I love the guy, he's not enough to cause this. The offensive line has not been great, but they've gotten better in the last few weeks. And once again, they're playing with a completely different offensive line this week. They have been absolutely bugged with the injury bug. Don't get me wrong. But it's not just injuries, because when I see opportunities, like when your running game is there and you refuse to run the ball, it's like no matter what games they're in, they can be in control, and Sean McVay wants to throw the ball. Kyle Shanahan, people say, doesn't throw the ball enough. Well, Sean McVay throws it too much and doesn't run enough. So, yeah, I'm going to say it now. I'm going to put a stamp on the season, and I'm going to say it's over. I know they mathematically have a shot, but I think it's over. I am going to have to really think about my decision, my thoughts on the Rams-Saints game, because I'm not convinced the Rams necessarily win that game. And then the Chiefs game, I'm not convinced they win. And who knows if they win, against the Seattle Seahawks. The Raiders, I think they win. I think they beat the Raiders and Broncos as of right now. That's who I think they would beat. The rest is up in the air. I mean, if we even got the Rams in 2019, if we got a competitive team that had some good play calling but just struggled towards the end of games, they could probably muster a 10-7 or a 9-8 record. But they're in jeopardy of going below 500 for the first time in Sean McVay's tenure. I could not have imagined this. I definitely didn't imagine when I picked the Jets as the AFC team to cover on this channel. I did not expect the Jets to be the team we'd be talking about potentially making the playoffs and not the Rams, but here we are. Now, I understand this is a little different tone. It's not yelling or it's not like, an overly passionate tone, but it's just me being honest. But let me take you off the ledge a little bit, okay? First off, the Super Bowl. Because if they did not win the Super Bowl, you can be upset all you want. And trust me, I am. Because, a big part of what I do, my self-employed life right now, my job, my career, is based on the Rams' success. I mean, it's tied to it. Because when the Rams do well, the channel does well. And the Rams can only do bad for so long before, 334 people in a live stream becomes 24 people in a live stream. Not saying it's going to happen. I do have a really nice following. You guys are great. But I'm saying, how likely are people going to be to jump into a video once the season's over to watch me talk about a team that is not going to be playing in the playoffs, right? So things do change. But it's very interesting because the Rams, this is the optimist side of Jake. So be ready, because I'm going to dish you some optimism here. And it doesn't have to do with this season. So here's the thing. Okay? The Rams just won the Super Bowl this calendar year. If they did not win that game, this would feel like the end of the freaking world. Right? Can we all agree on that? Regardless if you are overly optimistic about this team this year and that they could turn it around, or you believe that they're gone, can we all agree, before I get into my presentation, that regardless of what happens, if the Rams had lost to the Bengals in the Super Bowl or the 49ers in the NFC title game, right now, in this moment, you're sitting at 3-6, everything has transpired exactly how it would have happened regardless, that would have felt like the end of the world, would it not? You absolutely have to imagine that. 100% would have felt like the end of the world. But they did it, right? They won. They won the Super Bowl. So it kind of is pissed off as you can be and as mad as you are. No team in 12 years, it's the longest drought in the history of the NFL, has repeated. Not since the New England Patriots. So, as bad as they look, they still have a ton of injuries that have led to this. And while there's definitely some bad things that, we talk about, the offense play calling is not good, they're not playing well, we get it, right? But you do have that injury excuse. Like that's a legit thing. They started their 8th or 9th different offensive line combination in this one. Pretty ridiculous when you think about it. That's a big thing. Let's not just ignore that they went into games without 4 of their top 5 secondary players. Let's not ignore the fact that 10th different offensive line combination. Let's not ignore the fact that this year nothing has gone the Rams' way. Let's be honest here. Nothing has gone their way. OBJ is going to sign with another team. Von Miller went to the Bills. They got Bobby Wagner, right? They got Allen Robinson. But remember when I was freaking out live stream, I was pissed off because they had traded Robert Woods away. And I said that sometimes you make trades like that and, they have unseen consequences or unforeseen consequences. I don't know how to say it, but you get my point. I'm not saying you trade a Robert Woods away and it cripples the team. I'm not saying these guys no longer want to play. But you do things like that, and it starts to make you wonder how much that could have an effect. That was a captain last year who they started coining the term win it for Bobby. Okay? It was win it for Bobby. We're going to do this for Bobby. Think about that. That guy held He held value in that locker room, and you trade him away. And, you come out and you got this plan. You go out and you get, Allen Robinson. Great. You haven't used him correctly. Not once has he looked like I believed he could look this year. This has been, by all accounts, the worst case scenario for the Rams. This has gone about as bad as you could have imagined. There's no way that they could be worse than this. There's just no way. This is rock bottom. So you're like, Jake, I thought you were saying that this was going to be an enlightening experience and an optimistic part of your little presentation. Why are you saying this? Because here's why, folks. It's the same thing. Would you rather win a close game, heartbreaker, like the Buccaneers game? Or would you rather just get killed by the Bills? See, I would rather the team just gets blown out. Because heartbreakers are heartbreakers. I don't want to lose a close game to the Buccaneers, right? I don't want to do that. If this team has to lose, if I know this team has to lose, why would I want them to lose a close game? I would want them to just get killed. That way I don't feel like it was close. Doesn't hurt me. So then you think about that. So take that same logic and apply it to missing the playoffs. If the Rams do not miss the playoffs, which is 99.1% chance of happening, there's a 0.9% chance they make the playoffs. And I haven't even looked, so it's probably lower than that. But here's the thing, guys. Okay? If the Rams miss the playoffs, why would I want them to finish runner-up? Why would I want them to be the 8th seed that just barely misses the playoffs? If the Rams miss the playoffs, I want them to be in last place. I understand they don't get a draft pick because they traded the first rounder away, but hear me out in what I'm about to say. What I'm about to say is this. It's not about the draft pick. If the Rams maintain last place in the NFC West, and this is assuming they miss the playoffs, if they could win the next, every game the rest of the way, they still have a shot at making the playoffs, because then that means that they would go 11-6. That'd be enough to get in. I'm okay with that. I'm obviously not going to have an issue. But think about it. Now you have the last place schedule next year, and you have the talent you have, and now you've learned a lot. See, this is another thing that's very important. You can have an issue with Sean McVay, and I have an issue with his play calling, but you can't say to fire the guy. He's still a young dude. He's led him to 2 Super Bowls. He's won one of them. He's been a model of consistency for the Rams. They make the playoffs in 2019 if it was the 17 format that it is today. So no, you don't trade. You don't fire him. But one thing is next year, this team has talent. Okay, this team has talent still on the roster. This team has talent that's going to be a free agent. I'm not going to lie. There are some guys that they'll miss, like an Edwards there. And, you look at a Nick Scott maybe. And, there are definitely some guys that are up for free agency. But they could bring some of them back. And regardless, they have talent. So it's not just, this team has talent going into the 2023 season. This team would have a last place schedule. If the standing right now holds, they'd have a last place schedule. If you don't know what that means, let me tell you right now, okay? The Rams next year would play the Saints, the Commanders, and the Bears. As it stands right now. They would not play the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Buccaneers next year. And that's just getting into it a little bit. I can look up the actual schedule here. It won't have the where the schedule is, but let's see. Who would they be playing next year? Let's see. 2023 Rams schedule. So they have the Bengals, Browns, Steelers, and the Ravens next year. And they do play in Baltimore because they played in LA the last time at the Coliseum. So they have those teams next year, and they also play the NFC East next year. So you're playing the NFC East next year. You're playing those teams. Yeah. So then the AFC South. So you would be playing next year the extra game. The extra game that you would be playing is in the AFC South. The Rams would play the Texans. That would be their extra game as it stands right now. The Rams would play the Texans. So this is what I mean. I think having a last, like people like talk about it, like it's not a big deal. Last place schedule, first place, all that. Tell me how big of a deal the first place schedule was this year. Clearly was a big deal for the Rams. Think about it. They haven't beaten anybody good. So it definitely was a big deal. And I do think that helps. But on top of it, it's not just what is tangible. It's what McVay's learned. He's still a young coach. He's still learning. Whether you want to admit it or not, winning a Super Bowl doesn't mean he no longer can learn anymore. Doesn't mean he's old either. I mean, like, Sean McVay right now is what, 37 years old? He's 36. He turns 37 January 24th. So here's my thing. He's still learning. And, you know, he's going to learn from these mistakes. He's going to learn. He's going to put guys in position to succeed. I would not even rule out, you know, them changing up their personnel a little bit. And a big thing here, and this is a big, big thing. You ready for this? The Rams are more likely not to lose any coaches that they want to keep if they don't make the playoffs. So that would mean, like, for the first time under Sean McVay, the Rams had the same coaching staff that they wanted to keep. They could keep Morris. If the Rams don't make the playoffs, do you think Morris gets hired as a head coach? I think he should still, but maybe he doesn't. So I think that's a big aspect in it too. But at the end of the day, I'm not worried in the long term. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. I'm not worried in the long term at the end of the day. I'm worried in the short term, and not really worried because I'm already I'm at peace with it. This team I don't think is going to I don't think this team makes the playoffs. I'm almost positive they don't. Wouldn't mind if they did, but I'm almost positive they don't. They just don't look like a team that's about to make the playoffs. They don't look like a team that's about to rip off 8 or 7 wins in a row. No. 8 wins in a row would be it. So they just don't look like a team that's about to rip off 8 wins in a row, and that's okay. I mean, it's not acceptable. It shouldn't be considered acceptable, but I've moved on. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's tough, and I hate talking about it, but, you know, they didn't make the trade for Brian Burns. They still have their 2nd round pick. They still have a 3rd round pick. I hate that they gave away the 4th rounder for Sony Michel. That doesn't change anything, but, you know, this is, it's going to be on to 2023. I mean, you know, I'll still cover the team. I'll still, you know, have podcasts for each game, and we'll still preview it. But there's a damn good chance that, you know, this team is not going to make the playoffs and we'll be on to 2023. And I'll give you the best damn draft coverage that I could possibly give you because you guys deserve it. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but, you know, we've been through tougher, right? Think about this. Alexa's first year, she joined the DTR podcast with me, came off of a Super Bowl loss. The Rams missed the playoffs too. So maybe Sean McVay he gets the Super Bowl and can't make the playoffs next year. So maybe next year they'll win the Super Bowl. I don't know. But yeah, it's been a season. You're absolutely right. It has been a season. It's not been easy. Couldn't have predicted it, but this is why we watch the NFL, because let's go through what the consensus picks were in the NFL. The Packers, the Rams, and the Bucs were the best teams, the teams to beat in the NFC. Well, the Packers may be the Buccaneers may be 5-5, but that division is not good. The Packers are 4-6. They have no chance of winning the division. The Vikings are 8-1. The Philadelphia Eagles are 8-0. The Giants are 7-2. Dallas is 6-3. I mean, the 49ers, everyone was talking about them being great. They're 4-4. I mean, if they lose tonight, they'd be 4-5. Seattle being 6-4. I said Seattle was going to be more competitive than people thought, but I did not imagine 6-4 at this point in the year. Then you look at the AFC. I mean, the Chiefs, we knew the Chiefs would be good. The Chargers are probably the worst 5-3 team I've seen this year. I mean, they're just not a great 5-3 team. No, maybe the Titans, but the Chargers don't look very good. The Broncos are 3-6. Imagine being the Broncos. Okay, the Rams, remember, Rams traded for Stafford and won the Super Bowl the same year. The Buccaneers, picked up Tom Brady in the offseason, won the Super Bowl the same year. The Broncos traded Deshaun Watson-esque, like a package to acquire Russell Wilson. And they are 3-6, and I think they look really bad. So the Raiders are 2-7. I mean, at one point we thought the AFC West was going to be unbeatable. And then the AFC South. I mean, the Colts are 4-5-1. They fired Reich in the middle of the season. They just hired Jeff Saturday, the former center for the Colts, and he was working at ESPN. Jeff Saturday just won a football game. He's got 2 wins away from tying Sean McVay in the same season, and he just won the Super Bowl. This is an unpredictable league. The Ravens are 6-3. The Bengals are 5-4, but the Bengals started off like 0-3 or whatever. The Browns are 3-6. Steelers are 3-6. The Jets are 1 win away next week against New England to taking first place in the AFC East. Just think about that. I mean, that is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. The Dolphins have a bye at 7-3. The Jets have the tiebreaker. They won a game by like 20 against the Dolphins earlier in the year. The Jets would have the number 1 seed in the AFC East. They would actually have the number 1 seed if the Chiefs lost, I believe. I might have to check that. But the Jets would be in play to potentially have the number 1 seed in the AFC. This is what I'm talking about. It's an unpredictable league. Things change every single year. There's way more parity in this league than your NBA, than your MLB, than any of it. Maybe not hockey. Hockey seems to have a lot of parity, but it's just, I don't know. It's gotten to that point, man, where it's like, as bummed out as I am, it's like I just accepted it. I accepted it because I can't change the result. It's like, how am I going to change the result? All I can do is give my opinion. I mean, we could sit here and talk about how bad this team is, and that's definitely fair, but would you rather get, more versatile coverage from me, or would you rather have me just regurgitate the same stuff you're going to see anywhere? I like to take things outside the box in my live streams. I don't like to just sit here and be like, oh yeah, no, I like to take things outside the box and talk about things that maybe topics that others aren't talking about. Not for the sake of doing it, but the fact that I think we all need to be a little bit more educated in certain things. Like I learn on this stream. I'll be like, if I'm interested in something, I have no shame in looking it up. If you guys mention something, I have no shame in looking it up. But yeah, it's been very tough this year, without a doubt. It's not the end of the world. They still have Sean McVay under a 5-year deal, Les Snead under a 5-year deal, and they're gonna look at this and they're gonna learn. They are going to learn. It's that simple. They are going to learn from this. They won the Super Bowl last year. See, here's my issue: is when I hear people say he never learns. Sean McVay never learns from his mistakes. They're never going to learn. That's not true. Okay? 2017, they go to the playoffs. They lose to Atlanta. Okay? The lesson to be learned is, how do you win a playoff game? They turned the ball over. They made some mistakes. They lost the playoff game to the Falcons, who had more experience on their roster in those moments. This was a Falcons team that played in a Super Bowl. They lost. What did Sean McVay do the next year? He brought them to the Super Bowl. Then he was dealt a bad deck, or a big blow, if you will, because unfortunately Vic Fangio basically let the secret out on how to beat Sean McVay's offense. Jared Goff, because of that, and Sean McVay, because of that, declined. 2019, they missed the playoffs. So the mistakes he learned from. Next year, he stopped having Jared Goff try to do the things he was doing in 2018, 2017, and he tried to keep things more simple for him. And you can say what you will, it wasn't a fun season entirely, but the Rams were a top 10 rushing attack with the three-headed backfield of Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers. And they made the playoffs. And they won. They beat Seattle. They didn't even win the division, and they beat Seattle on the road. Who thought that was going to happen? John Wolford was starting that game. He got concussed. Jared Goff with 9 fingers won that game. And then he played against the Packers. And in that game, he saw no Kupp. I mean, Kupp was pretty banged up. Aaron Donald. So what did the Rams do? Goff wasn't enough, and there was no pass rush outside of Aaron Donald. It was the realization Aaron Donald was really the scheme for the defense. So what did Sean McVay and company do? They went out and they traded for Matthew Stafford because they thought he was going to put him over the top, and they kept tabs on Von Miller that we did not realize. They kept tabs on him the whole year, and then they traded for him because they knew that they had a deficiency in the pass rush. And sure enough, they won the Super Bowl. So to say they did not learn, or they never learned, is just not true. They faced adversity, and now they're facing another level of adversity. And I'll say this, I dare you to give up on this team. I dare you to give up on Sean McVay. I dare you to call them, take them out of the equation and say next year they're done. This is what they are. They're not coming back. This is it. This is how it ends. It's going to be another bad bunch of years. I dare you to say that, because you, my friend, are going to be proven wrong. It did not go the way we expected. It didn't. And there's still 8 games left. So, I mean, it's still a possibility, but let's be honest here, the season's over. But next year, with a last place schedule, or second to last place schedule, all that talent, Sean McVay, who's a top 5 coach in football, if he learns from the mistake of maybe, hey, I should stop calling plays, and he gets a real offensive coordinator in there, maybe Thomas Brown takes over as the OC, guy with background in the running back room. They run the ball more. He manages the game more. That could help. Starts letting him call plays. Maybe they go out and they get Frank Reich. Maybe they go out and they get Cliff Kingsbury if he gets fired. Maybe Jay Gruden, who is a consultant on the staff. There are different things they can do. And I'll just say it. I'll just say this over and over and over again. I don't count out Sean McVay. I don't count out the Rams. Since Sean McVay and Les Snead have been a tandem with the Rams, they've missed the playoffs. They've also gone to 2 Super Bowls, and they win playoff games. So, and think about this, okay? They have been at least to the divisional round every single year that they've made the playoffs, except for their first year. They learned. So, I mean, we could hate on this team all we want and say it's over and be negative, but I'm going to do what I do best, and I'm going to stay positive in the long term. Right now in the short term, it sucks. But I think you look at the long term, and there's no reason to believe that this team is done, because they got way too much talent to be done, and they have an entire offseason. And keep this in mind. This is somewhat of an excuse, but keep this in mind. They got their offseason started late. They got their draft stuff started late because they played the Super Bowl into February and other teams were focusing on the draft. The Rams, because of that, missed draft events. I think this could be, I don't want to say a blessing in disguise, but think about this. If the Rams really, with all these injuries, if they weren't going to win the Super Bowl, then maybe this is the best thing to happen to them. For real. Why would you want to see this team in the playoffs with all these injuries if they have no chance to win in the first round? I'm not saying I applaud it. I'm not, and I'm not saying I'm happy about it, but I'm saying just keep in mind. Yeah, Kevin O'Connell was really good, I think. But why would you reset and rebuild? Because I don't know, this team just won the Super Bowl this calendar year. I don't think you blow that up. You find the nooks and crannies that you need to fill, and you fill them. If it involves, you look at everything. You evaluate everything. Stafford's good. As long as he, checks out medically and you don't worry about the elbow or the arm or anything, he's good. Then you look at the running backs, okay? If you feel like you want to bring back Henderson, you pay him. If you don't, you move on. You have Cam Akers still, but the guy I'm really excited about is Kyron Williams. So you got those guys in the running back room. Then the receivers, you have Cooper Kupp long-term. He signed a 5-year deal. Best receiver in football. Allen Robinson has 2 more years left on his deal. They have Van Jefferson, right? I mean, I don't know what to make of Tutu Atwell because they don't use him, but they do have a second rounder in 2021 that they still could use. Skoranek has made significant strides as a 7th round wide receiver. Tyler Higbee, Bryson Hopkins, hopefully he gets more playing time moving forward. I like that they got him involved a little bit, or at least tried to. Then the offensive line. I mean, what do you make of the offensive line? They signed Havenstein long-term. They have Allen locked up long-term. They have Shelton locked up. Or not locked up, but they have him under contract for 2 years. They have Noteboom locked up, if they could move on from, because he's got the medical insurance thing, the insurance policy in his contract. Edwards is a free agent. Maybe you look to improving. I mean, Logan Bruss is a 3rd rounder they lost before the season started. So that'll be a help. Maybe he develops. Who knows? Then you look at the defense and you're like, you got Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald on lock. Bobby Wagner is a 5-year deal, so you'll have him 4 more years. Ernest Jones is making some very big strides moving forward as a young player. Greg Gaines is a free agent, but you do have Bobby Brown, who you spent a 4th round pick on. Marquise Copeland's played well. Ashawn's a free agent, so you'll probably see a little bit of a different, defensive line. The safeties, I mean, who knows? Quentin Lake was active. Russ East was active. Nick Scott is probably going to be gone. He might get paid big. Rapp is going to be gone. So you got Fuller. He still hasn't come back yet. So you got Ramsey. Hill, I believe, is a free agent after the season. You got Jacoby Durant, Darion Kendrick, David Long's a free agent. There are going to be some new faces. So you could say there's no hope. You can say this team's over, but I think they have enough pieces where they can make some moves and they'll be right back in the contention hunt. I really believe that. I think that's what it comes down to. So, yeah, it may be deemed as an excuse. Maybe like, oh, Jake, you're just saying this, yada, yada, yada. No, I think, it's fair to start talking about next year. This team is last place in their division and doesn't look to be going forward. So, yeah, I think it's definitely fair to talk about next year. And I think it's fair to look at this team and look at the pattern. It's funny. You guys ever trade stocks or crypto or anything? You know how the patterns, like the double bottoms and things like that, you can literally see, or you could predict based on the patterns how things are going to go. Let's look at the pattern for the Rams. First year, they make the playoffs, they lose in the playoffs. First game, don't even win a playoff game, but they go 11-5, right? Second year, 13-3, lose in the Super Bowl. Next year, miss the playoffs. The next year, they make the playoffs, they lose in the divisional round, but they do win a playoff game. Then the next year, they win the Super Bowl, and then the next year, they miss the playoffs. You can see the pattern is that, like, unfortunately, this team at their lowest are very low, but at their highest, they're very high. Now, I would prefer a consistent winner, but I'm going to say it right now. I would not be surprised if this team turns it around next year and freaking wins it all. Because now the decisions that maybe they thought about making, maybe they were tough to make, but you won a Super Bowl, so you didn't do it. Yeah, I remember that. I take full responsibility. This isn't an I gotcha, because I've already said that. I said that live. I've had some bad takes, man, but I've had some good ones. And for the most part, like, I'd say I get stuff wrong, I get stuff right, but as long as you're you're transparent about your misses, I don't think it's a big deal. You got to at least hit on some things. Like when I said when they traded for Matthew Stafford, they were winning the Super Bowl. Boom. They hit on that. So, bad takes, good takes, bad takes, good takes. We all have them. But the only difference is for some people, I just, I'm not afraid to admit them. Some people delete them, they do that. I'm not afraid to admit it. Yeah, that's true. No, I hear you. I get it. I get it. I mean, I don't think it's funny because, well, I wanted him to succeed, but, Yeah, you're absolutely right. $10-minute cast? What do you mean? What 10-minute cast? Did I go live and not know it? With my host? It was longer than 10 minutes. Are you talking about, was it a live stream? I'm so confused right now. Yeah, Mark, I'm not really sure what you're saying. I mean, I did 2 podcasts with Cameron Lynch and with Alexis, and yeah, I mean, I don't go live for 10 minutes. That never happens. Oh, you know what? Mark, you probably joined when I was premiering something. Yeah, I was premiering our podcast. You can actually go and rewatch it if you want to see the full thing, but it premieres it as a live stream. I'm not actually there. Yeah, I didn't ditch you. I wouldn't do that. I'll never go live for 10 minutes. I don't see the point of it. I see people do it. It's not for me. I'm not a fan of it. Would never do it. But people apparently do go live for 10 minutes. Well, I appreciate that. Love you guys too. Yeah, it's definitely frustrating. I mean, I appreciate you guys being in here. A lot of activity here. We got, 10 chat rate? Damn. That's pretty crazy. Is there a way to see how many comments? Yeah, I don't know how to check how many comments, but we're literally averaging... Oh, the chat rate's now 16. We're averaging 16 comments a minute? What? It doesn't feel like there's that much. I'm here for it. Yeah, so since the season's going the way it is, and since soon it doesn't look like we're going to be covering. See, there it is. See? Trevor admits that I was right. I was right about something. It just wasn't about the Rams. But I tried to tell people, I'm like, look, this Vikings team is good. I tried. People are like, nah. I'm like, no. Let me just tell you right now, okay? Mike Zimmer held that team back for the last 3 years. He was not a good head coach. They were really missing a legit culture changer, and I think KOC did that. And I stand by that. 8-1, baby. Vikings are likable too. I mean, man, I hope they do well. I have nothing against the Vikings. Nothing against the Vikings. That's an interesting thing. I don't know if they'll do that. Appreciate your comment. I don't know if they'll do that. But I mean, if Cooper Kupp's out for the year, I mean, you're not making the playoffs. Like, any chance of you making the playoffs is gone if Cooper Kupp's out for the year. So, yeah, I think, maybe you do consider that. I didn't think he looked slow. I thought he looked pretty good. He looked kind of like Ronnie Rivers, but like a better version. That's about as simple as I can make that. Darius, how we doing? What's good, Jake and Ramley? Still haven't made peace yet with this lost season. I'm still going to the Saints game next week. Hey, I love it, man. Thank you so much for donating, Darius. I hope they get a win for you. I think the season's over, but I would not mind them ripping off win after win after win. But if it is over, I do expect them to bounce back next year with an easier schedule. And just the fact that Sean McVay always learns his lesson. So, this team has learned, they've adapted, they've evolved. That's been the McSnead era in a nutshell. 2017, they lose in the playoffs. They don't win a game. They lose to the Falcons. 2018, Sean McVay has them in the Super Bowl, losing to the Patriots. 2019, they missed the playoffs. Would have made it in the 7-team format. Always point that out. 2020, they beat the Seahawks on the road in the wild card round. They lose to the Packers in the divisional round. 2021, they beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl. And 2022, it looks like it's going to be like 2019 and missing the playoffs. So I think the pattern, it wraps itself back around. I think 2023, they'll be back and they'll be ready to go. Whether they're great, good, okay, that remains to be seen, but I do think that this team is going to bounce back. I think they do have more talent than given credit for. And I think, when it comes down to is when you have these seasons like what the Ravens had last year, man, the Ravens stayed competitive when they lost Lamar Jackson, they lost Marcus Peters, they lost Marlon Humphrey, they lost Gus Edwards, they lost J.K. Dobbins, they lost Justice Hill, they lost Rashad Bateman. I mean, they lost, you name it, and I'll find it. They lost the player. Ronnie Stanley came back from injury. They lost him. Sometimes, as sad as it sounds, the injury/football gods screw you. And we saw the Rams overcome a lot of injuries last year. But the thing about the Rams last year is that they didn't lose their entire offensive line. They didn't lose, Stafford was healthy all year. I mean, he was banged up, but he didn't miss a game. And eventually it's going to become too much. So sad as it sounds, it was like dictated, it was like they didn't really have a chance. Oh, absolutely. Wolford should not have been throwing that high over Kupp's head. So the AFC North, well, I mean, you'd be playing Washington, Chicago, and New Orleans. So as of right now, I mean, that could end up being decent. Chicago could end up being a better team next year. Washington could have a quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, it could backfire, but, you're not going to be playing like the Vikings, the Eagles, and the Buccaneers or anything like that. Well, it's hard because it's like if Seattle's legit, if Geno's actually figured it out, it's not just a contract year thing. Like if Geno shows up the way he has this year, next year, then they're a contender. The 49ers, if Trey Lance is back and, he plays at a high level, they can win a Super Bowl. The Arizona Cardinals, I mean, I don't know what to make of them. I don't really think they're a good football team. I know the Rams just lost to them, but I just don't think they're that great. I don't know. The NFC West seems to be a toss-up year to year. And, I mean, think about it. 2017, the Rams won. 2018, the Rams won. 2019 was Seattle, I think? Or was that... Hold on. What was 2019? Let me check. I don't know why I'm blanking. So 2019 was the 49ers, 13-3. The Seahawks were 11-5. The Rams were 9-7. The Cardinals were 5-10-1. 2020, the Rams finished second behind Seattle. And the 49ers were last. So how about that, actually? You go back to 2017 when the Rams put themselves on the map. They went 11-5. The Niners came in last place. Cardinals came in third. Seahawks came in second. 2018, Rams first place. Seattle second. Niners third. Cardinals fourth. 2019, the Rams came in third, Seahawks second, 49ers first, Cardinals fourth. 2020, the Niners last, Cardinals third, Rams second, Seahawks first. And then 2021, the Rams, the Cardinals, the Niners, and the Seahawks. So now it's Seattle, 49ers, Cardinals, Rams. That means since Sean McVay has taken over, the Rams have been the only team in the NFC West that has not finished in last place, and they are in jeopardy of doing that. The 49ers have finished in last place twice, and yet they're still always around. That's why I'm not giving up on this team. I don't think this is the end. I don't think this is signaling the dark age. I don't think the end is nigh. I miss me with that because I don't buy into that. I just think that, it's a wake-up call to change what you're doing. The pessimist in me would say they have to completely change their defense. That would be a big mark left on the team. But the optimist in me would say Aaron Donald retires and you have, $30 million now in cap. McCaffrey got injured. Is he okay? It's absolutely a wake-up call. Without a doubt. He's not injured? I don't know what's going on. I don't even know if I believe they need a new offensive lineman. I mean, if they stayed healthy, do you think their offensive line would have struggled the way it did? I still think their offensive line has been better than what they should be. It's the 10th different combination that they're starting. I mean, it's insanity. In the last 2 weeks, they've actually been pretty decent. So it shows you the offensive line is just a cop-out for Sean McVay's lack of play calling. His play calling has not been good offensively. And I stand by that. So, I don't know, man. Yeah, if the Rams wanted OBJ, they needed to win. I will say this, okay? Kupp just suffered potentially a torn not torn, but like an ankle injury that could mean it's the end of the year, right? If Kupp is out for the year and could push into next year, right? If it's a serious injury and he's out for the year, the Rams could, now I'm not saying they will do this, but they could acquire OBJ because OBJ would want a multi-year deal. And a lot of teams don't want to give him a multi-year deal because he's coming off a second torn ACL. But if the Rams looked at OBJ, saw the season, was like, you know what, I think we can still win. We need OBJ, and Kupp's out. They offered him a 3-year deal or a 2-year deal or whatever. I think OBJ would consider that. I don't think he's necessarily coming if they don't win games, but I think the only way he would come is if the Rams ponied up some big cash and they're like, we'll give you a long-term deal. So yes, okay, you're not going to necessarily compete for a title this year, but we get you long-term, you're taken care of, you don't have to worry about it. And yeah. So I don't see it happening, but if the Rams, if they gave him a multi-year deal, I mean, I think he might actually take it. That's what he wanted. So I don't know. I do think it is the end of the year for the Rams. I mean, they still got plenty of games left, but they need to pretty much win out at this point. They don't even need to win out. They could lose one more game, but the problem is they just don't look very good. Like, they don't look like a team that I feel confident in even saying that they're going to beat the Saints. And I think the Saints aren't very good at all. So, you know, we're just at that point right now. But we'll figure it out. Plenty of content to come. And if the off season is approaching earlier than we expected, then, you know, we'll, oh God. Yeah, it might be. If the offseason approaches quicker than we expected, then I'll tell you what, I'll give you the best damn offseason content possible. We'll have draft coverage. We'll have all sorts of stuff, interviews per usual, but I'll take it up a notch because they're going to have a pick in the second round. They're going to have a pick in the third round. So, you know, that's what I'll say. But that is going to do it. I can't talk anymore. I'm losing my voice. Rams Edge and MCU Edge will return, okay? I can promise you that. We are going to get that back in running. I have been running around like crazy. I took on a podcast that I initially was never on my mind about taking. I was approached by Believe, so I decided to do it, but I wasn't expecting it. So a lot of the things I had planned for this year, I kind of had to push to the side to kind of get that thing rolling. So if you could do me a favor, please be sure to subscribe to the Believe in Rams podcast I host with Cameron Lynch, former Rams linebacker. Be sure to subscribe to the Downtown Rams podcast, which I host with Alexis Kraft, on all your podcast platforms. And be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Like this video. It really does help me out. I'll be making some more. We'll have a lot to talk about moving forward. But unfortunately, that is it, folks. The Rams blew this game. They lose 27-17. Sean McVay, to wrap this up into a bow, Sean McVay still struggles to call offensive plays. It's trickling down into the offense struggling, which then is helping hurt the defense. Helping hurt, that's an interesting way of putting it, but you get my point. So until the offensive play calling is figured out, doesn't matter if the offense line's great, doesn't matter if the running backs are great, nothing is going to happen because they're not going to run the ball. They're going to neglect it. You know, they're going to throw deep down the field when they don't have to. I don't know. This felt like rock bottom. We'll see what happens. I'll get you guys ready on 2 different podcasts, DTR and Believe in Rams. Get you ready for the game next week against the Saints. We'll also have coverage on the Jets and Patriots game if you're interested in the Jets. I know some of you do like the Jets. I appreciate the following of my Jets coverage as well. So we'll get that all taken care of. We'll get MCU Edge back on track. We'll get Rams Edge back on track. And hopefully I will figure out my voice situation. And in addition to that, Warzone is coming out, Warzone 2.0 for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So I will be playing that live in some capacity. So I am looking forward to that. We'll be streaming some COD moving forward. We'll make this more of an open channel where we're constantly putting out stuff, constantly interacting, and all of that. So, definitely more COD streams on the way. Definitely more off-season geared content as the Rams continue to blow the season. And, that's what I'll say. But anyway, that's it for me. I appreciate you guys listening to my long rambling on, circling around live stream. Always appreciate you guys sticking with me. It's hard. It's really hard for me to do live streams after a loss, but you guys make it pretty easy. So appreciate that. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. I'm going to go watch White Lotus. I think it's like episode 3. I think it's the 3rd episode. So that's what I'm going to go do. Rams Edge, MCU Edge. Look out for those. Look out for the COD streams. And everyone have a great week. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Later, folks.